Hi, my name is Joel Coleman, and I'm Senior Director of Software Development for Oracle Application Express, or APEX. Welcome to today's virtual summit, Building Applications Faster with Low Code. Here's what we'll cover today. In just a few minutes, you'll hear from Mike Hichwa, Senior Vice President for Oracle Database Tools. Mike will interview Forrester analyst John Bratton-Sevick about the trends in low code. Mike will then share Oracle's vision for application development and some of the challenges our customers face. He'll then describe the new capabilities we've recently announced to help our customers succeed. Then you'll hear some compelling stories that describe how Apex helps our customers meet their business objectives. And you'll also hear from an Oracle partner how Apex helps them meet their customers' needs. I'll be back later in the program to provide you with a deeper look at Apex, which includes some common use cases, competitive advantages, and I'll also illustrate how Apex can help you respond quickly to ever-changing business needs. Later, I'll share a short demonstration of Apex and provide you with the next steps to help you get started with Oracle Apex. Immediately following today's summit, we invite you to join an Apex hands-on lab where we'll show you how to easily create a beautiful, responsive enterprise app in minutes using Apex. Your result will be a secure, scalable, multi-user app that provides a single source of truth for your data. Next up is Mike Hichwa's interview with John Bratton-Sevick from Forrester.
Hi, this is Mike Hichwa from Oracle, and I'm joined today with John Bratton-Sevick from Forrester. And we're here today to talk about low code. So we're just going to dive right in. And John, I know that Forrester coined the term low code, and I know that you cover this area very closely. And I'd like to know from your perspective, what do you think is driving the recent interest and adoption and just a lot of companies looking at low code, and what problems are they trying to solve, and what is causing all the excitement?
COVID really concentrated the interest in low code. Overnight, when people had to start working remotely, all the paper and spreadsheets that run a lot of businesses broke, and there were a lot of new application needs that couldn't be met any other way than low code, really. Like, you needed a way to build and deploy this stuff quickly, and low code kind of really had its day quite dramatically. But I mean, the market's been kind of building up to this and primed for it for years. COVID just kind of concentrated the need and the problem. There's a few things. One is we need to adapt software all the time and quickly, right? And low code is intrinsically adaptable. It's declarative. You can take a piece out, put it in. So it allows you to change what you have for whatever business needs there are. Also speed. Low code is a lot faster than programming in a lower level language. And we need new apps fast all the time. We need to deliver them yesterday. We need to change them. And that's what low code's good at. And then third, even if those other two problems could be solved with process or more modern technology in general, there aren't enough developers to go around. There aren't enough coders. So if you think about all the stuff that business needs to digitize, all the paper and all the spreadsheets, and then all the old systems that need to be made new and then connected and everything, like the only way to get at that is through some form of democratization, right? You need to involve other people in the software work or it'll never get all done. So kind of all those things coming together means low code is really big.
So you're kind of introduced this topic of a broader development community that low code affords. And I was wondering if you could comment on citizen developers. I mean, on one side, you might think, hey, citizen developers, they're going to create insecure systems that don't scale, that aren't enterprise or something. But also they bring maybe a lot of knowledge to the table where they know the business, they know intrinsically what you want, where if you just have an IT professional that just codes all day long, they might not understand what a particular finance group or sales organization is really needing. And maybe you could comment on that sort of interplay between the pro developer, the line of business developer, the citizen developer, and the different roles they might play.
The principle I always point to on this is we talk about being digital and being a digital business and digitally transformed. So my simple way of putting it is, well, if everybody's in the software business, then business people need to do software work, right? Like if software is how you get things done and what you are as a business, that means software needs to be an expression of the business, which means business people need to be involved in the day-to-day. So I think like the fundamental principle going on of being software driven sort of requires business people being involved in the work, right? Not just as, a contributing party in the form of requirements, but actually doing the technical work themselves. For a lot of the reasons we outlined, but I mean, again, if you're software driven, business people need to do software stuff. So what we see happening is, think of it as a spectrum. Okay, so low code kind of allows this, and products have their pros and cons instead of different points on the spectrums and all on the spectrum and all that. But you have the hardcore developers on one side handling the big, gnarly, complicated stuff that requires code and big architectural concerns and need to be closely guarded, right? But there's a whole lot of stuff outside of that. We call it the long tail. They might be apps of significance, or they might be less significant, but there's a lot of them and they add up. So what we're seeing in terms of best practices for governance and kind of mixed teams is you have a low code platform, or maybe more than one, to appeal to the different personas, depending on how they're set up. You have the pros sitting in IT who work on the big projects. They coach people in local departments who are kind of champions on trickier projects or who want to learn or whatever, and maybe they co-build. And then those champions work with local people who either build small things themselves or contribute to people, projects their champion is working on or whatever. So think of it as this federated spectrum of governance, right? All kind of in a low code environment. So I expect we'll see a lot more of that, because I mean, there's just so much technology need and so much need for business to be expressed in technology. And this idea of, well, the technologists sit over here and everybody else is in business and you just feed them what you want. I just don't think that's sustainable in the digital
It's the
era.
new normal. It's a mishmash of everyone together, sort of. It's
a done deal. We just got to catch up. And some people are doing it quite actively and aggressively and experiencing really good results at scale.
So I see low code used in many different ways, but I was just wondering if there are specific areas where you just see as the lowest hanging of fruit. Maybe it's bespoke or custom app development. Maybe it's SaaS extension. Maybe it's legacy system modernization, digitization, where analytics, data reporting. Is there something that, like, when your customers call you and talk, are they more concerned about one use case or less? Is there any specific area that's driving low code more than another area? Maybe not. Maybe it's everything.
It's a little hard to answer, because the platforms that are premature can do a lot, right? Because if the tooling includes data and databases, interfaces, process design and automation, security, reporting, I mean,
those are the building blocks of all applications, right? It's not just for SaaS extension or custom app or line of business apps.
Where there's a really, like, it's just if you're not doing it this way, it's really silly. Like, it's just a profound gap. Is just digitization, just the business of taking all the crap that runs a business behind the scenes, like in reality for so many enterprises, and turning that into apps, right? Like, you're not going to go out and buy 1,000 SaaS apps for doing all those things. You want to take all the stuff that's invisible, all the workarounds, and turn them in at a minimum. Like, that's like if a company doesn't do at least that, that's just a gigantic gap. But in terms of the way the platforms are used, they're used for everything from core modernization for like big apps for big companies to, replacing spreadsheets and the whole spectrum of patterns between them.
So one thing I've noticed being in low code for a long time is that it used to be when you build an app, you would spin up a team, you would have a project plan, you'd have a project leader, you'd have a year time horizon, you'd have a big budget, and you'd build that app. And it's like building a bridge, right? You're going to buy the supplies, you're going to build the bridge. But more and more for low code, what I see is developers just try something. Like you could be a citizen developer. You have no idea, but there's no reason why you just can't dive in and start developing. And I was wondering if you've seen that. You've talked to people that do that, and this idea that there's just low barriers. Just go for it, and if it works, it works. It doesn't, just toss it out and try again. There's a sort of a lower barrier entry to build an app. You don't need a big team, for example. You could go solo if you wanted to, maybe.
So what I've seen, and this applies both to development teams, but also citizen development. So especially citizen development, I feel it's kind of like rocket fuel for innovation and continuous improvement. So exactly what you said, like there isn't a lot of investment or difficulty in prototyping or making a minimum viable product or just trying something. So what happens naturally is people get used to this idea that they can do that. They just start doing it. So I've talked to companies where that was exactly one of the benefits they identified when they scaled low code and made it available to a lot of people. There's tons of innovation and ideation, but expressed in software, not just on a whiteboard somewhere.
Yeah.
And they would even make disposable apps, right? Like, hey, we just need it for a few months, but why wouldn't we? Why would we use some analog workaround to get this done? Or why don't we try out this product idea or whatever? So it's kind of intrinsic to the model once you get used to it. Like once you wrap your brain around it, there's like this place beyond just agile, right?
Yep.
Which is built around a technical team works with business people and iterates and all that. There's like another place where it's like the speed of thought almost, and the working patterns change. And then, I mean, the experimentation, the continuous improvement, and the innovation, it just explodes.
So another area of low code, which I find particularly interesting, is this whole data visualization, analytics, dashboarding. I mean, it has a whole spectrum. But the way I kind of view the world, I work for a database company, but there's a lot of data out there, and the data doesn't get in the hands of the people that need it as conveniently or quickly or with as high fidelity as it always can. And I see this as like a prime area where like citizen developers can really have at it, and just when they gain access to their databases, their corporate information, they can start doing all kinds of really cool stuff with low code. And so sometimes people think of application, they think of systems that you enter data and then you get it back or whatever. But there's also this whole class of just data reporting and such. And I was wondering if you kind of see a mix between that sort of like OLTP versus decision support.
Oh man, I mean, I mentioned earlier the use cases for the industry are kind of universal. So I mean, reporting apps are probably more a minority because that's the business intelligence type platforms tend to do especially well at that. But there's definitely reporting style apps. Usually what you see is like there's some operation, and it could be anywhere in the business, that is in bad software or is manual, even if it's very, even there's a lot of money running through it or whatever. That's digitized. That produces data which is then reported on, right? And then they continuously improve on the process that was digitized. And like that's a very common kind of use pattern, but it includes all those things, right? I mean, if you look at our data, it's like customer-centric use cases, internal use cases, mobile use cases, reporting, core systems, like headless stuff, like it's just anything. So yeah, I mean, using the data in creative ways or creating the data, creating net new data sources, of which there are many that need to be created, those are all kind of in scope.
So one last topic, I'd like to talk about IT governance some. And my perspective is that, for example, if I want to build a system, it can be hard sometimes because there's so many rules and so much complexity. There's, maybe you're beginning clickjack, maybe you're going to have a denial of service attack, maybe you're going to have a SQL injection, maybe you're cross-site scripting, maybe you're using an open source library that's old, or maybe you have some HIPAA compliance or some other standard that you've never even heard of issue. And so you're always very worried about these things. And maybe it's kind of like an adage with lawyers, saying no is a safe answer to just don't do it. But I'm just curious, what kind of guidance do you give? Because there's sort of pros and cons. Like you don't want to be fast and loose with your data and your governance and your security and your corporate information, but you also don't want to hinder innovation. And I was wondering how you strike that balance and what type of guidance you give on a governance perspective.
On data governance or on low code governance in general?
Or both. I mean, I understand they're different, but maybe low code. So we're talking low code, but the governance, because certainly you're building an application, and applications, can have vulnerabilities. They can, expose data. They can be vulnerable.
I suggest to people, I basically say, approach this with the goal. So if you want lots of people to develop lots of apps, because that's really where the big governance questions come in.
Yeah.
Approach this with the goal of creating a frictionless experience for the business people to solve problems, right? Like they want to use these digital tools to solve problems. To do that, you have to separate the actual serious risks from the lesser risks or the imaginary ones, of which there are many, right? So for example, something that doesn't integrate or only integrates to innocuous data sources or through some sort of innocuous pattern, right? Like that should not be subjected to checklist hell. Right? Like that people should be allowed to self-serve to some degree. As kind of like with spreadsheets they can today, this is just way, way better. And then it's visible. You can see what they're doing on the platform, and you can, put some process into the development and deployment. And it's a way to direct all that positive energy so they can do way better work and you can see what's going on. Then for more sensitive things, for that smaller list of real risks, basically that's when you can kind of put tiers of developers in, right, where they have access to certain data sources or access those data sources in a certain way. And you can segment the development processes to say like, oh, you need an approval before deploying an app that has this kind of data, or you need a code review if to do it, or some other parameter about the app, the size or something like that suggests that you need to hand this off to us or whatever, right? But the core of it is, go ahead.
I was going to say that your recommendation, you don't want to have the process per application. You want to have a policy and a standard, and when you do this, then you fall in. When you cross this line, you go through this process. When you're over here, you're all good. Just use a certified platform, and it kind of, you recommend that the IT department get their act together and get a low code standard and corporate policy in place. Is that
with the philosophy in mind that there's a lot of stuff that doesn't require a lot of oversight? You're not delegating You're not delegating IT. That is not what you're doing. You're trying to jumpstart a digital problem solving culture where they can get wonderful things done, and you don't want to get in the way of that, or they won't do it. Like if it's hard and onerous and
they'll just do it in a spreadsheet.
I won't do it. I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet or my Access database, or I'm going to go buy a platform that you didn't buy me. I'm going to run it on my credit card and do it myself. Like Shadow IT will just continue to grow unless you rehabilitate it. Like that's basically what it is. You're trying to direct all that positive energy in a pragmatic way. It has to be pragmatic and aim for a frictionless experience so people can take care of business, and you can unleash all that stuff. And I've seen it done. But that requires carefully segmenting out the actual risky things from the much less risky things, the big bucket of stuff that you need to sort
I agree with that completely. That's the critical factor, I think there.
There's a lot of teaching. It's teaching design thinking and problem solving and continuous improvement, and then technical things like architecture and best practices and things like that. But it's this mentoring thing that we want you to go do these wonderful things. That's our goal.
So is there anything we've missed sort of in talking about that you can think of that about low code, or something that's important with low code that we haven't really addressed? Maybe in terms of business processes or CI/CD, or
I think probably the most important thing to bear in mind is when people approach this subject, I think they think of it in terms of just, well, we're going to make some series of apps in an easier way, and that's kind of it, right? And and they kind of put it this lower tier of development, a very specific tier of development, and that pattern, it works and can be effective. But I think what I'm seeing, what I expect, is that this idea of declarative development, like where it's mature to this point, we call low code, right?
Yep.
It's going to be baked into everything. It's going to be baked into package applications. It's going to be baked into suites. It's going to be baked in specific software categories. And this idea of software just changing all the time. The only way to really do that concretely is some sort of practical development where the interoperability is guaranteed and there's quality checks and like it's all on a platform, right? So my expectation and my recommendation in general is that low code should be seen as kind of a first class development approach in your software strategy. Like this isn't just we're going to replace spreadsheets kind of thing. This is all our software has to have some low codiness to some degree or another. And we might even choose to write an app in low code as opposed to buy an app off the shelf because it can reflect exactly what we need. And we can continuously improve it and change it and adapt it in an ongoing way. And the costs and difficulties of doing so are so much lower than writing it in code. So I see it as getting to the point where it's quite disruptive to kind of everything in software. It's not in this little bucket anymore.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks for talking low code with me today, and I wish you the best.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Next up, we're going to talk low code. We're going to continue our low code conversation. We're going to talk about Oracle Apex and low code. And specifically, we're going to talk about the Oracle Apex Application Development Service, which is brand new from Oracle. And so the Apex service has multiple benefits. And so one of the benefits is low code development. So with the Apex low code development platform, you can build applications more rapidly than you could if you hand coded them. And additionally, you could have them developed by a broader range of developers. You can have citizen developers, lines of business developers, professional developers, sort of the whole gamut. And where the Apex service really shines is that the Apex service is built on autonomous infrastructure. So what that means is that you as an application developer don't have to worry about the deployment of the application. The application is deployed on this fully managed autonomous infrastructure, so it's not of your worry. You don't need to have a DBA. You build your application and you deploy it on autonomous. Another distinguishing characteristics of the Oracle Apex Application Development Service is its lower cost than other ways you can get the Oracle Apex. And so what Oracle has done is they've put Apex development front and center with this new Apex development cloud service. It's $358 per month, and which is fully elastic. And so you can scale independently the storage and the compute power. So the compute starts at $240 per month, and you can have it auto scale. You can turn it off if you don't want to pay, if you don't need it for night, or maybe it's a development or test system that's not being used. You can turn that off, and then you can scale the storage as well to petabytes. And so it's really quite capable. It can scale from like a small departmental use case to a large mission critical application, maybe even to millions of users. 128 CPUs is a lot. And so what's different about the Oracle Apex service versus Oracle Apex in Autonomous Database? And so when you get Autonomous Database, you have a database experience. When you go to the Cloud Console, you click on database and you see a database console. The Apex service reverses it. So it's not a database. It just happens to have an Apex application development a framework within it. It is an Apex application development framework targeting developers that just happens to have an Oracle database in it. So when you launch on the cloud service, either for free or paid, an Apex service, you get Apex. You get Apex screens. You see your console is Apex centric. You're just a click away to get the database console if you want that, but it is focused on the developer, focused on the Apex low-code developer specifically. Now, there is a difference. The lower cost is because that the Apex service is pretty much identical to the full autonomous transaction processing service, with the exception of the user experience, which I just mentioned, but also that you get SQLnet. So with the autonomous database, you can get SQLnet, you can connect through JDBC, connect through Python driver or something like that. But with the Oracle Apex, since Apex doesn't use SQLnet, it connects over HTTPS. You do not need it to run Apex apps, and therefore Oracle is able to provide the Apex server on Autonomous Database at a lower cost. Okay, so Apex is all about low code, and this is from Wikipedia. This is my favorite definition of low code. It kind of gets all the core things that I think are most relevant. It broadens the types of developers who can be productive and build out applications. It reduces the time, it reduces the expense, and it really is changing how applications are built across the world. And so let's take a look at this. So there's almost all use cases for low code are addressable. All use cases that you might need in your department or your enterprise. So you might want to extend applications. You might need to modernize a legacy system. You might need to build a new system from scratch. You might build a custom system just for your department. You might build a system that's just kind of temporal, just for a month. You might build a system that you want to last for 10 years. Could be enterprise scale, could be just for you personally, could be for your work group. So there's a wide variety of use cases for low code. And what low code, because you can build the applications more rapidly, you can create perhaps more sophisticated and compelling components than you would be capable of coding by hand, maybe because you're not the world's best programmer, or you don't have every programming skill, you're just not a genius. Then Apex can help that from a low code perspective. So let's talk about the broader types of developers. So traditionally, your applications are built by IT people that are professional developers. They build applications day and night. That's what they do. And so new with low code and how low code is used is that it's so easy to use that lines of business developers can use it, citizen developers can use it, data scientists can use it. So there's more developers that come there. And so, but these other developers, they bring other perspectives. The line of business developer has deadlines and the line of business in mind when they're building their application. They have knowledge of that line of business that might be harder to transfer to a professional developer that might not be in that line of business. Likewise, with citizen developers, people are more tech savvy than they used to be, and they use social media and they use e-commerce, and they can leverage those skills to build out applications and to build out innovations within their companies and address the types of problems and digitization that can benefit their companies. And that's where this application development and low code thing really kicks in. So what Oracle did is we contracted a firm to do a time and motion study. So we took an accomplished React developer. React is the industry standard JavaScript development framework. So that is your benchmark sort of high control coded solution. And we asked them to build a typical application with various screens. And the development time for someone who was very skilled in React versus Oracle Apex was substantial. So it was 38 times faster for someone that knew React well to create the similar functionality to what you could do with Apex. And likewise, the line of code, there's far less code that was required in the Apex solution than was required in the React solution. So this shouldn't come as a surprise. And if you're interested in the details, we publish it on the link below. So Oracle Apex is all about this productivity. And one of the ways it gets this productivity is it provides it allows you to build your entire app just in your browser. It's not just an application developer, it's a lot of things. It allows you to build your data models. It allows you to create REST and consume REST APIs. It allows you to have a task list. It allows you to solicit input from your users during testing and such to see if they like your application or if they have feedback for you, if they're experiencing problems. And of course, it allows you to build your application in low code. So having one tool and one cloud service makes it very easy because there's not this integration. You don't have to learn different user interfaces or different identity management. It's all just one experience. So let's look at part of that experience. So frequently when you create applications, if you're not just consuming REST APIs, which you might do, but frequently you're going to have local tables, and you can create your local tables, stored procedures to store your business logic, et cetera. And you can do that in the SQL workshop, which comes with Oracle Apex, just a click away. And in fact, if you have a table and you want to create an application on it, you just click a single button, you can create an application on that. A great way to get started. You can look at your tables, add new tables, create views, create all the database components. You can do data modeling, data generation, a lot of power here. When it comes to the application development typically starts with a wizard where you're just going to follow a wizard. Say, I want to create an application, and you click on add a few pages, choose some features, choose a user interface to start with, which you can customize from there. And then once you have your application, you can add additional pages, remove pages, and develop it in this rapid low-code style. So Oracle Apex lets you build this application very easily, and you can see these screens are pretty straightforward. So for example, if I wanted to build this faceted search, which is on the left, I could do so using declarative no code. So the general philosophy is use no code when you can, and only use code as an exception. And when you do need to use code, try to use as little code as possible. Maybe just a little snippet of code, maybe just a little bit of business logic, maybe a little bit of SQL. And so the Apex is particularly good at this, and it can let you build out these rich components by just setting properties. And what's interesting is that when I work with developers, I've done so for my entire career, is that if you hand code things, people don't like or find it hard sometimes to edit other people's code because they code in a different style, they think in different ways, they modularize their code differently, maybe they indent differently, they name their variables differently. But with low code, it's just properties. So when you're setting a property of whether you want to show the counts or how you want to sort your facets, there is no difference between developer 1 and developer 2. So another distinguishing characteristics of Oracle Apex is the architecture. And so as we said, on the Oracle Apex service, the architecture is fully managed. So the middle tier is fully managed and the database is fully managed. But what's unique about Oracle Apex is it puts the application engine in the autonomous database itself. So the Oracle database includes the Apex engine, which provides a lot of benefits, performance benefits, as well as high availability benefits. And so let's drill down into some of those. So specifically, because Apex is not a code generator, it's a model-driven execution engine, which means it generates data from metadata stored in the Oracle database. Oracle database is really good at storing data. And so when customers make requests from their web pages to Oracle Apex, the request can be serviced. Lots of different business processes can be invoked. Screens can be developed and rendered. And because it's in database, you don't have to do any network traversing. You don't have to traverse a network from mid-tier to the database tier, then back to the mid-tier, then back to the database tier. You're all in the same computer, in the same memory structures, on the same server. And it is kind of counterintuitive, but it does provide substantially faster performance. Also interesting about Oracle Apex is that it's available in different ways. So you can get Oracle Apex on premise. You can get Oracle Apex on premise for free with Oracle XE, our Express Edition database. You can do your development on-prem and deploy it in the cloud. You can do your development on the cloud and deploy on-prem. You can deploy on-prem, and then when your company moves to the cloud at a later date, you can deploy there. You can deploy your Apex apps on the Oracle cloud. You can deploy your Apex apps on third-party clouds. And so there's a lot of opportunities with Oracle Apex. You can build Apex on Windows. You can build Apex on Linux. You can build Apex in a VM inside of a Mac OS on Linux. So having this option gives you a lot of options for the future. Apex is Apex no matter where you are, but you can have it hosted in different ways. So since Apex lives in the Oracle database and Oracle Apex is able to natively interface with the data structures within an Oracle database, for example, the SQL language, it also takes advantage of the converged nature of the Oracle database. So all the applications I've been building in the last few years have all been what we call converged. In other words, they have multiple different types of data. So for example, where the applications we're building for this COVID pandemic, they all have a spatial component where you get your vaccination, where you live, et cetera, where is the closest pharmacy, et cetera. And so you might have a text component. Maybe there's JSON documents. Maybe you need to do some analytics. Maybe you need to do other technologies. And what's nice is the Oracle database comes with that built in. So Oracle Apex, it's used a lot. Over 500,000 developers, millions of applications are created, over 6,000 applications are created every day. We've got lots of partners. It runs on mobile. This is a live application in Ghana that's been used by over 73,000 people to get vaccinated. It's quite exciting and really interesting technology. And if you want to learn more, I strongly encourage you to go to apex.oracle.com and you can view our tutorials and videos. So that's it. The Oracle Apex Application Development Service, lower cost, more developer focused. That's the Oracle Apex Application Development Cloud Service. There's a lot more information on apex.oracle.com.
Hi, this is Fatih. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of FAM Properties. We are one of the largest, leading and most advanced real estate agency in Dubai in terms of tech. We operate from 4 locations in Dubai that are Business Bay, Dubai Marina, Palm Jumeirah, and Mudun or Dubai Land. So back in the university days, I heard that Oracle is the #1 database provider. And after the university, I joined a company that provides Oracle solutions. That was in 2007. And I found a CD on which written, you can convert an Excel sheet into a web app. And by 2012, I joined FAM, where we had a major challenge, that is data security. Practically, our income revolves around our data, because from the start, we think that the data is the new oil, and in case our client's information is leaked, we really are in a great loss. By that time, I started looking for that magic that I saw in 2007, and I found Apex. One application that enabled us to store our client's information securely and accessible anywhere by all our employees. What I really like the most about Oracle Apex is that it enables business people to bring their ideas to life even without any support from the IT team. Oracle helps us to work more efficiently and store information more sensibly, which resulted in deriving new insights from our data and enabled us to make more rational decisions in a shorter time. We were able to deliver solutions and apps in a record time. It was better weeks versus months had we used other platforms. It is just so astonishing how easy you can make changes and maintain your apps. You can easily impress your management by taking a single small business case and converting that case into faceted search, chart, calendar, and some automation. So my advice to you to get started with Oracle is to start small, validate your idea and business case, and then scale up. It's not only easy to start with Oracle, but also it requires from you zero investment. Simply go to Oracle Cloud and create a free account. We have been happy with Oracle solutions, and I would recommend you explore their innovations. Thanks for listening to our story.
Now we're going to take a deeper look at Oracle Apex application development. Oracle Apex is something that Senior Vice President Michael Hitchell and I started more than 20 years ago. And I think it's important to understand that first and foremost, we are application developers. And our passion has always been about creating and deploying real applications that scale and look beautiful and take advantage of Oracle database. We initially built this platform to help us create and deliver applications as quickly as possible with the least amount of code and effort. I'd like to provide a very brief overview of Oracle Apex and how Apex can benefit organizations of any size. Oracle Apex is a low-code application development platform from Oracle. Using only a modern web browser, you can quickly design, build, and deploy beautiful and powerful enterprise applications. Apex enables you to build applications that look great on a desktop computer, and these same apps look great on a tablet or smartphone. You can do this without any code. Most business applications are data-driven, and it's extremely easy to build Apex applications to maintain data via a report and form or a grid, and also to create beautiful visualizations from dashboards, Gantt charts, bubble charts, gauges, and many more. And you can do all of this without requiring any HTML or CSS knowledge. Lastly, if you know a little bit of SQL, you can flourish in Apex. There's no better language on the planet for data manipulation than SQL, and in Apex, anything you can express in SQL, you can use in Apex. From analytics to pattern matching to spatial data queries, it's all easily accessed via SQL. And you can put an elegant user interface on this with Apex. Oracle Apex is one of the industry's leading enterprise low-code platforms. It's used for solutions both large and small across every geography and virtually every industry. There are more than 500,000 Apex developers around the globe and more than 50,000 customers using Apex today. There are millions of Apex applications in existence, and more than 6,000 new Apex apps are being created every day. There's a large network of partners who are proficient in delivering solutions with Apex, and they are around the world. Apex is a comprehensive platform. Everything is fully managed and pre-configured, ready to go. All you have to do is access your service via a browser, and you're ready to start creating. But beyond fully managed, Apex is a complete platform that provides all of the necessary tools you would need for any type of modern application development. One area where Apex excels is the functionally rich application components that make it very easy for developers to quickly deliver very powerful applications to their end users. This ultimately translates into increased speed of development. A great example of a feature-rich component in Apex is something called interactive grid. The developer, you, simply needs to create an interactive grid on a table or viewer SQL query. That's all. At most, one line of code. And as a result, your end users get a wealth of functionality at their fingertips. End users can filter results, perform aggregations, download to Excel or PDF, duplicate rows, send a report as an email, and a lot more. You, the developer, you have to maintain that single line of code, and everything else is out of the box. You can do a lot with the Oracle Apex platform, and I tried to highlight some of the capabilities here. For example, you can easily create executive dashboards using beautiful visualizations, and these are kept up to date in real time. Often, customers simply want a way to collect data. It could be for scheduling an event or providing feedback, and you can effortlessly deploy a secure web form with essentially no code. These are common and easy development tasks with Apex. Oracle Apex is really an ideal platform to deliver solutions for a wide variety of use cases, from the smaller solutions like opportunistic applications and spreadsheet replacement to medium-sized problems like external data sharing or departmental reporting, and finally, up to enterprise breadth applications. If you wish to convert your Oracle Forms application to a modern Apex UI or modernize your legacy apps, which may be used across the enterprise, or even just provide an extension or reporting interface to your ERP or SaaS enterprise system. Apex is used today by customers for all of these use cases, and I'd like to drill down into a few of them. Where Apex shines is in the design and development of opportunistic applications and also the digitization of otherwise manual business processes. The past year has highlighted the need for platforms which aid the development of opportunistic applications, where the requirements are evolving and the need is immediate. With Apex, you can start with a concept, something you typically sketch out on the back of a napkin, and quickly create your first app in minutes. As requirements change, it's very easy to extend your applications to meet these new needs. In the area of process digitization, you can go from these manual, often paper-based and email-based processes into a single application which improves efficiency and quality and ultimately accuracy of data. What's great is these apps that you quickly deliver can scale to thousands of end users. A use case that we have optimized with Apex is the replacement of spreadsheets as multi-user databases. There are countless problems when you use spreadsheets as these type of multi-user databases, but no big surprise, every enterprise does this, simply because there typically isn't an alternative that's approachable by the line of business. In the case of Apex, you can easily drag and drop a spreadsheet and transform it into a multi-user web app. You now have a single point of truth. You can control who accesses the information. You can audit whenever something is changed. You can add validation rules and pick lists to ensure the quality of data and also ease data entry. And you can easily create APIs for others to access your data. The best part, this can all be done with little to no code, and it's easily approachable by the citizen developer. And the last use case I'd like to focus on is external data sharing. Very often, you'll want to externalize a subset of your data to a certain group of users. Perhaps you have an ordering system and you want to provide your customers a web app where they can go ahead and view their order status or track delivery. Or maybe you're involved in a construction management business and you need to provide reports to your suppliers. Using Oracle Apex, it's easy to provide an internet-based UI for your customers or partners or suppliers. And Apex can integrate data from a wide variety of sources. You can easily combine data from on-premises systems with local data and also data accessed over REST APIs. You can provide one consistent UI to your users. Apex is an easy way for you to provide self-service reporting. As a great example of an opportunistic application, earlier this year, we on the Oracle Apex team, we were part of a large cross-functional group within Oracle to deliver a set of applications to assist with the treatments for coronavirus. This system is used by health practitioners and their patients who are being treated for coronavirus, and data was gathered to help scientists make better informed decisions about these COVID-19 treatments. This was a suite of applications, 7 in all, comprising more than 200 different pages, and this was delivered with Apex on the Oracle Cloud. We went from not even a single byte of code to a fully operational system in about 12 days. We believe that Oracle Apex has some unique competitive advantages which differentiate us from other vendors in the low-code market. Apex is a highly productive low-code app dev environment. As well, it is a complete platform for managing data and developing and delivering applications. Oracle Apex is a fully managed service in Oracle Cloud. It's built on top of the Autonomous Database Infrastructure, which is a self-managing, secure, converged database platform. Unlike some other vendors, there are no extra costs per application, developer, or end user. And what you get out of the box can easily support apps with thousands of end users. This platform includes enterprise features of Oracle Database, including spatial and graph, machine learning, analytics, and more. Apex is suitable for both citizen developers as well as professional developers. It's easy to get started, but you're not limited by the sophistication you can add to your apps. Oracle Apex lets you segregate different lines of business onto a single service. You can have different work groups or departments work in isolation on the same single Apex service. And lastly, as your needs rise, with a single click, it's easy to upgrade your Oracle Apex environment to virtually limitless capacity. Well, I hope you found this useful. Stick around to hear how an Oracle partner was able to meet their customers' needs and deliver their own high-quality solutions with Apex.
Hi, I'm Niels de Bruin. I'm a business unit manager working for EMEA. Back in 2004, I started off developing my first Apex apps, and nowadays I lead a practice of 45 Apex specialists. I'm also very committed to the DOAG, which is Oracle user group in Germany. And on a yearly basis, we organize the conference Apex Connect, where about 400 attendees share their knowledge. I'm also the founder of Flows for Apex, which is an open source tool with which you can do process modeling, but you can also run those processes all within Apex. So what are the challenges faced in the app dev market? Well, on one hand, we have a typical application today gets around 3 to 6 months development time. On the other hand, we have digital transformation taking place all over the world. So the number of applications rises on a day-by-day basis. Oracle Apex enables us to deliver more high-quality apps in significantly less time. And if you compare that to other vendors out there in the low-code market, its total cost of ownership is very much compelling. Let me give you 2 examples of Apex apps we did in the past. So on one hand, we have Shipbuilder Flensburger. And before this Apex app arrived, they spent 4 or 5 hours each week building a milestone diagram based on PowerPoint. And we said we can do better than that. We have all the Oracle data already in the database, so why not build an application on top of that? So we used Apex with a little bit of JavaScript D3 framework, integrated that, and the result is what you see right now. On the other hand, we have an enterprise Apex app built for an asset manager called Union Investment. Their application called Fund Profiler is a very enterprise-wide application. It's being used by 1,000 users. We've built this in 2012, and over the years, we added more functionality to it and upgraded, of course, the Apex releases. It has very much business logic in there, a very complex approval process, and it has loads of integrations with backend systems. So, when do you start with Oracle Apex? Let me give you 3 tips. First, if you're new to Apex, go to apex.oracle.com. You get a free workspace over there, and within minutes, you're up and running, developing your own apps. Secondly, use the portal apex.world. use the Slack channel over there, use Twitter, and engage with the community. And lastly, when you have some knowledge built up, some experiences, share them yourself, just like we do as well. The whole community can benefit from it, and that's where the real strength of Apex lies.
There are a number of next steps which you can take to help you get started, but first, let's summarize what you've heard today. You've learned about the key trends in low code from Forrester's senior analyst, John Bratton-Sevic. You've heard Mike Hitchwood describe our new Oracle Apex service, which is designed to be your low-cost, powerful, low-code application platform. I've shared a deeper dive into the Apex technology. You've heard some great Apex success stories from both a customer and an Oracle partner. Now, let me show you how easy it is to create a powerful Apex app in minutes. I would like to start with a simple Excel spreadsheet with rows of data and turn this into a multi-user web app. Within the Apex application builder, I'll start by creating a new app and creating it from a file. Let me find my Excel spreadsheet and drag and drop it into Apex. Apex will parse the spreadsheet and you get a nice preview of the data to be loaded. I'll specify a table name where to store these rows. I'll call it tasks, and I'll go ahead and load the data. I'll proceed to the Create Application wizard to create an application on this tasks table. I can see there are a number of pages defined by the wizard. I'll enable all application features and then click Create. Apex is not generating code, it's generating the definition of my app in the Apex catalog in metadata. Here's my app and the newly created pages, 29 in all, and so far with no coding necessary. Let me run my application and log in. I get a beautiful dashboard, which I can easily customize. Apex detected date-related data, so we also created a calendar component on this task table. There's a form to enable your users to edit the data. There's also a report component called Interactive Report, which lets the end user quickly filter the data in a number of ways by entering text, by clicking on a column heading and choosing a distinct value. I can quickly group or control break the rows by clicking the column heading. And I can even export this same data back out into Excel or have it sent via email. Another report type that was created is the faceted search report, which is very easy for end users to quickly filter a report based upon a set of facets against our task table. I can also graph these facets for further data exploration. There are a number of features I chose to add to my application. There is built-in access control, so I can control who can view and who can edit. There is built-in performance monitoring, so I can monitor the performance of my app and understand which pages are most popular or slow. And I can also customize the UI of my app without understanding CSS to either match your corporate look and feel or use one of the predefined templates. Everything I just created is responsive out of the box. It renders perfectly on a smartphone or a tablet. Lastly, let's say later I wish to share access to this data with someone else via a REST API. No problem. All from within Apex, I can browse the definition of our table, browse the data, and using built-in functionality from Oracle REST Data Services, in a couple clicks, I can create a fully functioning set of REST endpoints against this table. To help get you started with Apex today, you can join our Apex Hands-On Lab immediately following this summit. Just remember to click on the Hands-On Lab link you received in your reminder email, or go back to the registration page and join from there. If for some reason you can't join the Hands-On Lab today, no problem. Please try a self-guided lab. You can also try Apex on Oracle Cloud for free. On the Oracle Cloud free tier, just go to oracle.com/free. Thanks again for attending, and I wish all of you a great day.